What's going on, internet? So what I'm doing today is I've been trying to recreate Arrigo Sacchi's 4-4-2 from the late 80s. It's when I started watching football, and I remember watching AC Milan. I used to watch them every weekend on Football Italia and in the early 90s, and I just used to. They were one of the first teams that I started watching, and so I spent the weekend watching some videos on Sacchi from the late 80s, and I'll put their links in the description. And I've come up with this. I've seen that some people have created Arrigo Sacchi tactics, and I mean my interpretation is quite different to the interpretations that are out there from previous versions, where people have done pretty in-depth jobs of analysing his tactics. And I don't know, it's strange. I watch the game completely different to how they've created their tactic, but there we go. One of the problems that we've got here is obviously we've got a really young team, and the roles that people are playing at the moment. You can't compare Suso to Donadoni, or Kessie to Rijkaard, or Locatelli to Ancelotti, or most ridiculously perhaps Catroni to Hullet. There's a long way to go, and it's going to take a couple of years, I think, before we're competitive with this formation. So let's get into the formation itself. And what I've gone for is an attacking mentality. The reason is obviously Sacchi's teams were attacking. I thought about overload. I just think that would rush the ball too much. Like, they're fast when I watch them, but they're not that fast. And I just don't think it would work. But I'll definitely try overload throughout the course of the season. I was having a conversation with someone in one of the comment threads online about this problem of people who have very high defensive lines but play a kind of standard or control mentality. And I think this is one thing that the game really needs to fix, is that, I want to play control here, but if I play control, my defensive line, you should see it here. Yeah, it doesn't really change, but my defensive line in the game goes down, and it sits back a little bit further. And I don't want that to be the case. I want my defence to push up onto you can see they go down a little bit. I want my defence to be standing on the halfway line. So I've gone for attacking, and I'll have a look at overload throughout the course of the season. Obviously, very fluid. There's no question there. If you watch Sacchi's teams, there's lots of interlinking between the positions. So Hullet often comes very deep, and the centre backs will push up into midfield on the ball. I also think that, coming back to this, it's one of the first ways that I've differed from people who've created this tactic before, is that Tassotti for AC Milan spends a lot of time in this kind of area here, and particularly going past Donadoni. Donadoni cuts in a lot, although he's right-footed, he cuts in. He's kind of two-footed player, he's a little bit like Santi Cazorla. I like to get Cazorla into this team in the second season. So I've got him as an attacking fullback, and that's different to how some people have set up, just because I've observed that they've scored a lot of goals down the right, AC, and he puts in a lot of crosses. So that's the first difference from my tactic compared to others. And you'll see when you watch the games how forward Calabria and Abate get down that right-hand side. So tempo, again, I'll experiment between higher and much higher. I just think when you're on an attacking mentality, the speed goes up massively anyway. So you could probably even say that a normal tempo, in fact, I might change that, a normal tempo would do us there. Big difference between me and other users is that I've gone fairly wide. I mean, I've not done any stats analysis on it. I might do this later, but I would say 40% of AC Milan's goals come from crosses. I mean, Van Basten and Hullet get a lot of headers inside the box, and so it doesn't make sense to me to play fairly narrow. I think one of the beautiful things about Sacchi's AC Milan is the diversity of goal scoring opportunities that they do create, and I agree they do come through the middle a lot with Rijkaard and Hullet playing 1-2s. But I just think they're a wide team, and I think we have to play wider. Just on that idea of 1-2s, I mean, there's so many 1-2s in the videos that I watched, particularly between the wide players and the forwards. So all the wide players and forwards have started training, if possible, for 1-2s. I've also done it for the centre mids, although I'm not convinced that that's the right thing to do. But we'll see how it looks when it gets into the tactic. I've also done the fullbacks as well because Tassotti does a lot of 1-2s down that right. Yeah, I can't do it for him at the moment because he's doing runs with ball down the right. Okay, so let's get back to tactic. So, yeah, so 1-2s, wide, very wide. What else have we done? So, yeah, high defensive line, offside trap, standard. Everyone knows they're key defining features of Sacchi. Same with closing the space down. So because you've got that high defensive line, your centre backs are sitting pretty much on the halfway line. So Sacchi said like there needs to be 25 yards between the defence and the forward line. And what happens is that in that area, people close down. They don't aggressively close down. And I think if this team was playing now, we wouldn't even call them a closing down pressing side. But for the context of the late 80s, they certainly were a closing down side. And obviously, preventing the short goalkeeper distribution goes with that. This is difficult. I mean, the centre backs at AC do stay on their feet, but they're not afraid to go in, and I might have a play with that later in the year. Particularly Ancelotti, Tassotti, they're not afraid, and Baresi, Costa Curta, Maldini are not afraid to put in a tactical foul. So I'm unsure about that at the moment, but I'm going to leave it. Obviously, play out defence. I'm not going to click pass into space, although they do pass into space, simply because there's a problem with retaining possession when you're using an attacking mentality with a reasonably fast tempo. So I'm not going to click that at the moment, but we could come back to it. I think this is debatable. They're certainly not playing tiki-taka. I think these two here are debatable, and I might change them throughout this area here. I might change throughout the course of the season, but certainly in the early games that I've tried this tactic, it does seem to create the same kind of playing style that I've watched in the videos. Obviously, more expressive, work the ball into box is self-evident. Float crosses, for me, watching, it might not be the same interpretation for others, but for me, the defining feature of AC Milan in the late 80s was the volume of floated crosses into the box to Van Basten and also to Hullet. Hullet could get in the box himself, although he's what we would think of as a number 10. It was a little bit like sort of Shearer and Sheringham. They were both really good in the air as well as being great on the ground. So run at defence again. Let's not define this as a possession tactic because it wasn't. Hullet, Rijkaard, Donadoni all run at defence, Tassotti as well, and whoever would play on the left would, to a degree, run at the defence also. So, yeah, I'll click in run at defence. I'm not sure about this yet. I think we probably should click it, but I don't want to. We've got fluid, we've got more expressive, we've got roam from possessions. I don't want it to be. We'll come back to that. So we'll come back to that one. We'll see how it goes throughout the course of the season. So, one of the things that people might dispute is the use of Masaccio and Bonucci as centre backs. The problem with the reason that I've done this is that in the early games, because Bonucci has